Thank you all for joining the ANZ online session number 2, October 18th, 2018 session on the procurement persona. My name is Eric Manley and I will be hosting this event. Let's go ahead and get started with some quick introductions. Okay, so who are we? I think Matisse covered this session, covered the roles of the SNAP COE yesterday, so I won't go into great detail, but I want to point out myself here that I'm based in America, Eric Manley here, and then my teammate Denzel Paul, who is based in Pittsburgh, has also joined us on the call, and will be fielding your questions as we proceed through the presentation. We also have Yuri, Sagor, and Matisse, who are based in Prague. Okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. This is just our roles. I believe Matisse covered this yesterday. The recording can be found on our GM site. Okay, so the purpose of today's agenda, right? So I wanted to start with a high-level overview of our playbook, the supporting documents that go along with the procurement persona, talk about the different types of buying channels that you're going to experience as a deploying partner, and the key buying channels in which the procurement persona will be interested in and learning, and most importantly, have a full and complete understanding as to what those buying channels are, right? Whether it's a catalog, non-catalog purchase, whether it's a requisition against a contract, or if it's a non-PO invoice or a spot buy purchase. As a deploying partner, it is our duty to make sure that our partner fully understands the capabilities of these particular buying channels, right? At that point, I'll jump into the system, do a little demo, kind of high level demo, walk us through some different scenarios, some real live content, and then we'll talk about some receiving, different types of receiving, how the receiving can be done, because from a procurement persona perspective, these are the key items that they're going to be looking for. The buying channels. Well, how do we do receiving? And how do I manage my approval rules, right? So we'll talk about the pre-configuration overview of what's delivered on day one, to our customers. We'll jump into some reporting, discuss our pre-packaged reports, and how to maybe create a simple, report on the fly, okay? And then, of course, spot buy, we'll give a spot buy overview, and then some of the admin features if we have time towards the end of the session. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we'll also have some Q&A as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. So how is it deployed, right? Matisse covered this yesterday, so today we're going to be talking about our procurement persona, right? From an end user perspective, right? From a procurement perspective, from an AP finance, these are our personas that are listed out here. So from a procurement perspective, it's total control of cost and process, right? So these are the folks that are going to be looking to, understand, the different buying channels, right? How to manage a category, right? How to, setting up approvals on the front side, so that the purchase order goes out the door within the business requirement specs. Okay. Matisse talked about this 2 days ago, but it's a 12-week go live, right? And our deployment methodology is built on a very prescriptive approach, right? Persona-based deployment, utilizing what we call the agile or activate method, okay? Where we're discovering, we're designing, we're developing, we're testing, and then we're releasing and moving into our next sprint, right? As you see, our playbook is broken down into 5 different personas and 6 different sprints, right? Each sprint represents a 2-week time period. So for example, sprint 1 is all about readiness. Sprint 2 here is all about configuration, right? So that's the first 4 weeks after we conduct our kickoff, right? So by the time we get to sprint 3, where we're delivering content to the system, we are now 6 weeks into the project, right? Our ultimate goal is to deliver a go live within 12 weeks or less, right? We have had some partners that have come very close in reaching this goal, right? We've had some projects that have gone over the 12 weeks. There will be exceptions, but the ultimate, goal is to meet that 12-week go live period. Okay. So a little bit about the resource, right? For those that were joined a couple of days ago, this slide may look familiar, but I think it's very important to understand the resources that are needed for each work stream, right? I've highlighted our procurement work stream, and so each color here represents each sprint, right? So if you look for sprint one, we are looking at a 25% time commitment from a 2-week period. Doesn't sound like much, which really isn't. So if you think about it, there's 80 hours in 2 weeks, which really breaks down to about 20 hours needed over that 20-week period, which is basically about maybe 4 to 5 hours. Now, this is on the high end, 4 to 5 hours a day. This is on the high end, right? Which really means that, I mean, if we can accomplish this in less, so be it. I mean, we're ahead of the curve and looking good. Okay. Some of our procurement folks' time is really spent, most of their time is really spent during the configuration of sprint two, where we'll need 40% of their time, and then sprint three, where we're actually delivering content, and then our validation piece here, where we're doing testing, right? Kind of trickle off when we move to production, and then about 30% when we talk about adoption. But as you can see, I mean, there's and by and far, when dealing with SAP Ariba Snap deployments, you may be dealing with, a procurement team that also may be your end user, or, they may also be part of the finance team. So it may be one person who's representing, two or three different work streams here, right? So keep that in mind as well. So when I say that, keep in mind, basically what I'm saying is that when we're scheduling out our calls, let's be cognizant of of their time and make sure that we use their time at a valuable pace. Um, so as you can see, 25%, 40%, 50, 50, 10, and 30. Okay. Okay, the playbook. I just want to bring this up to on the screen here only because it's very important where you can find your resource information, the deployment methodology. This is all stored out on our JAM site, right? It's shared as an interactive PDF document, and I'll pull that over in a second here, but I think it's very important to understand the concepts behind our deployment methodology and how it lays out and plays out for each persona. So basically the way the playbook is set up is that, again, it's an interactive PDF, okay? And we have it laid out in a table-like format. But most importantly are the recommended objectives for each sprint, right? So for example, configuration, there are certain objectives that we need to accomplish within that 2-week period, right? There's certain deliverables that we need to accomplish or have sign off on before we move to the next sprint of, say, sprint three, right? So everything that coincides with configuration, that needs to be handled and signed off before we proceed to sprint three. We also have for each sprint here in our playbook is our recommended workshops, right? How much time it will take with each procurement or with each persona, right? The time that is needed for each persona. So we'll talk about that in a little bit here, but let's just jump over to our toolbox. So within the playbook, we also have our toolbox. This is all your supporting documentation, right? So for today, we're going to be talking about the procurement persona. So within that procurement persona toolbox, you're going to find presentations on buying channels. You're going to find, PowerPoint presentations on, catalog admin or approval rules, receiving, right? These are the tools that we're giving you guys for a successful deployment, okay? Um, I mean, we've placed all this documentation out there, and hello? Okay. So all this documentation is there for your use. This is ever changing, so we're always looking for valuable content. We're always constantly updating. So I would highly recommend that, if we're starting a new deployment or, we're prepping for, a kickoff or deployment, touch base with the content that's there. There's some very key, valuable information here um, that is very useful. Okay, so let's talk about buying channels in SAP Ariba. Okay, of course we all know about catalogs, right? So buyer basically selects an item from a catalog for a purchase. Okay, these items can either be loaded via a punch out catalog, right? Or these items can be added as a non or as a SIFT hosted catalog. Okay, contracts is our other buying channel that's highly popular, right? So contract pricing terms are entered into the application without the need for a PO, right? These terms are basically available for the supplier to invoice against, right? So we've loaded a contract compliance with some pricing terms, and basically this is all seamless to our end user, right? Basically completely seamless to the end user, where the end user won't even know that the particular item is tied to a contract. Okay. And then last but not least is our forms. Okay. So, and this can be built in many different ways. And I'll demo this in a minute. So we have line item form, we have request form, we have three bids and a buy form, we can create a non-catalog order form. So these are just a quick overview, of the different type of buying channels that are available in SAP Ariba Snap. Okay. Before we get into a demo, I want to jump really quick over to our playbook because I think I moved too quick and I forgot to talk about where this information is at. Okay, so basically by now all of you should have received access to our JAM site. Okay, so this is our SAP JAM homepage. Within our homepage, we've kind of sectioned this out in our digital enablement sessions, our forms, our certification information, webinar, our demo corner where you can find all the information about demos, but basically how to deploy, review the playbook. I want to bring this up because it's very important for you guys to understand where this information is found, okay? So while this opens, I'm going to dive right directly into our playbook and toolbox. And I've taken the liberty and went ahead and downloaded our interactive PDF, so I'll pull that over as well. So let me grab our playbook also. So I'll open our playbook first. And I think it's very key to go through our playbook and understand, the concepts around it. And again, this is our version. This is our playbook. I mean, this is set up for you guys to utilize throughout your course of your deployment, basically as a guide, right? Or as guardrails, something that you can utilize to help guide you throughout your course of your deployment. So, again, the purpose, the methodology. So basically what we have here is our procurement, and these are page numbers 7 through 8, 18 through 19. So for each sprint, for each persona, there's going to be 2 pages, right? So if I click on pages 7 and 8, the first page I'm going to see is going to have my objectives, my deliverables, and my tools, right? We're looking at sprint 1, which is for readiness, okay, for the procurement persona. Right? Buying channels, highly important that our procurement team understands the different types of buying channels that are available. You want to start explaining the different types of approval flows, and then of course touch base on one of the most key factors which is one of the most key factors in a deployment is receiving concepts. Okay. So you're getting the customer thinking, you're getting them the understanding of what they need to prepare for in this readiness sprint 1 phase, right? Deliverables will be buying channels, confirmation, maybe map out a draft of guided buy. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but understanding like approval rules, the approval flow, how the receiving sets up, and how to administer. Okay, how do I change an approval rule? Basically, this is what we need to be, educating our customer and getting them to understand what's in store over the next, 3 to 4 weeks when we're talking about readiness and configuration, design, things of that nature. Okay, and last but not least, our next page will have what we call our workshop. So for the procurement persona, we also have the different types of workshops that we recommend for Sprint 1 readiness. As you can see, buying channels. Possibly it may take um, three sessions, maybe 4 hours each, so they can get an understanding of, the different types of buying channels, for you to have a successful demo of each scenario, right? And again, this is all on the high end. I mean, if it only takes one session where the customer fully understands how to create a catalog, or how to create a catalog order, or how to invoice against a contract, great, right? You can just you can squash the other sessions and then move forward. And then, for our procurement flows and then our receiving concepts, all that information is here. Now, again, recommended, right? Sprint 1 readiness is what we're talking about here. The information, what we recommend and what we've seen over the years regarding best practice and what other deployment teams have used for successful deployment. Okay, let me just go back here to our toolbox. Okay, so it has opened up. Let me just blow this up a bit here. And again, guys, this content that's out here in our toolbox, it's ever changing, right? We're always making updates to the documentation, right? For those of you that know SAP Ariba, right? We're always releasing new features. Okay, we're always trying to make our customers' lives easier. So with that said, from the COE's perspective, we're always trying to make sure that you guys have the latest and greatest documentation out there, that you can utilize when you sit down with each persona during the course of your deployment. So for example, I'm not going to jump into all, but I mean, these are all linked to an hyperlink with the documentation behind. So if we click on receiving here, you're going to get a little brief overview of what receiving is, and basically, the different types and methods. Just a quick overview here, but most importantly, there's a recording here, there's an admin guide, and there's a receiving overview. This PowerPoint presentation probably has about 49 slides. Do we need all 49 slides? Yeah, maybe not. But this information is here for you to use with your customer, to utilize, okay? Another good section here, another good area here, let me see. Let me go back to our playbook. And then we have, I like to actually look at the approval flow as well. The approval rules, right? We have a ton of documentation here that talks about approval rules, and the different types of approval flows that are actually set up in the snap round. So we talk about pre-configuration, right? So it's very important that your procurement persona understands, the best practice out of the box approval flows that are going to be set up for requisitioning, right? For receipt, for invoice reconciliation, and for user profile. I've captured a couple examples of those, and I'll show those later on throughout in the presentation. But it's important that our procurement persona understands, the different types of the different approval flow processes and how they're set up based on out-of-the-box best practice configuration. Okay, I always want to say best practice configuration, right? Because that's what we need to drive to our customer. Remember, SAP Ariba Snap starts simple and then build with complexity. We're driving out of the box best practice. And guess what? It's pre-configured for you guys, okay? All right, so let me go back here. So that kind of covers our playbook, kind of covers our toolbox. Um, basically, the nuts and bolts for the procurement persona are going to be found here. Reporting, I'll talk about later, spot buy configuration, okay, cutover checklist, transition to Ariba support through each sprint, right? We'll try and get more documentation out as we grow, but this is basically what we have today. There's a couple of videos here that explain our deployment methodology, right? I highly recommend watching the video that talks about our Snap Playbook introduction. Okay, some really cool information. Gives you a really good insight, a great understanding as to, why we took this methodology route and, how the playbook is basically configured. Okay. Just to go back to the homepage of the GM site, there's one more key thing that I want to point out here that is sometimes overlooked during our L1 trainings, and that's our FAQ section, right? So during the course of a deployment, you are going to run into questions. You're going to need help from colleagues or the COE team, but we have a forum here that has been awesome for our deployment partners, for asking questions, or anything that's related to a deployment. So if you click on the forum here, you'll see that there's it's categorized in a couple different sections: FAQ, Ask the COE, webinar topics, right? One of the most popular here is the FAQ and the COE. Ask the COE. Okay. And we will monitor this section on a daily basis, but it's basically an open forum for you guys to ask a question regarding, whatever the case may be. Here's a question: where can I find tools for Sprint Zero? Right? That's a great question. So what we're doing is we're in the process of uh, um, taking the information that's needed for Sprint Zero and packaging that into a new playbook. Right? Very key information here, right? Sprint Zero, right? We're collecting spend data, things of that nature. What are the pre-configurations? So that will also be captured, but that's a great question. So I wanted to point out these two key areas in our forum topic of Ask the COE, and the other is FAQ. In the FAQ, what you're going to find here is your demo information, right? So I'm going to take you guys through a little journey of a procurement persona and what they would basically be looking for. But during the course of our journey, we'll talk about signing in and different types of demos that are available. But most importantly here is that we are going to show the Nimbus demo credentials, right? And when I say that, right, so this is something that you're going to be able to utilize, right, today, right? So if you have access to Nimbus, and I think we're going to grant access to Nimbus for the most part for all of you, is that so you will have, the ability to log in to our Nimbus procurement site, as I'll show in a minute, but most importantly, also log in as or create an end-to-end process, right? So as you can see, we have 3 suppliers here with their login information on the Ariba network, right? Indus Consultant has been set up so we can invoice against a contract, and then we have computer electronic. So we have a couple different options here where we can actually do a complete end-to-end full cycle. Okay, so that's kind of just a high-level overview of our SAP Gem site, the playbook itself, and then the toolbox that goes along with the playbook. Okay, I think we're doing okay on time, 4:28. Okay, so let's dive back into buying channels, right? So we mentioned catalogs, contracts, and forms, 3 different types, okay? Catalogs basically going to cover our goods, okay? Contracts, we're going to have goods and services, and of course forms are going to be mostly geared towards services. Brief overview, I'm not going to read this word for word, but we've gotten this broken down in 3 different scenarios: catalogs, contracts, and forms. When you're sitting with your procurement team, you want to just point this out. Hey guys, SAP Ariba Snap, we've got 3 different basic buying channels: catalogs, contracts, forms. Within those 3, we have a couple different buying processes: catalogs, boom, catalog spot buy, and then contract based requisition, right? From traditional large enterprise, non-catalog requisition was considered like non-catalog. We have actually built that in our guided by, or in guided by, and have built out a non-catalog requisition form. Okay, so I'll show that as well. But again, this presentation will be shared, so I highly recommend that we educate ourselves on the different buying channels because your customer is going to ask you, what's spot buy purchase or what's tactical sourcing, right? Hey, here's your cheat sheet. Quick answer, right? Remember, quick wins. And working with the procurement department and the AP finance, which we'll cover in another session, this is where you can find those quick wins, right? With your procurement team, with your AP finance team. So having this information handy, share it with them, right? Say, hey, here's a quick snippet of, the different buying channels that are available, right? So I know we talked, we met, but here are a couple buying channels that we can set up for that particular, requirement that we talked about yesterday. Here you go, guys. All right. Okay, cool. So, and yes, Ariba does support non-PO invoices too. Okay, so that is an option as well. All right, so let's jump real quick into our Nimbus site, and we'll do a couple different scenarios. I wanna get you guys familiar with Guided By, right? Maybe a quick overview of the homepage, and then we'll dive into some normal purchases, some technical sourcing. I'll show how we invoice against a contract, and we actually have a couple of items that we can demo that are set up with tiered pricing. Okay, probably won't have a lot of time to jump on the supplier side, but most importantly, we want to definitely take a look at what's going on in Guided By itself. Okay, so let me go on over here to, alrighty, let me pull up Guided By here. Just gonna log into Guided By. I see the chat room is busy right now. That's good. Thank you, Denso, for answering the questions. Is there anything that you want to ask out loud, or are we good? Everything's been
No,
handled?
I
Okay,
think it's
cool.
okay, Eric.
Excellent. Thank you. Let me just get logged in here. Okay, so as I'm logging in here, and this is typically, yeah, what each end user will see. I mean, this will be your home page, right? So you're basically going to have everyone logging into Guided By, right? So this is going to be your ultimate page, right? And what the template that you're seeing here is what we call our professional services template, okay? Right? We have an option to, I mean, you could change pictures. The beauty of this here is everything can be changed on the fly, right? We talk about industry templates, right? So this is geared towards the professional services industry template. We can actually build, a template for life sciences, whatever suits the customer needs. I mean, it can definitely be done here. So this is basically our home page here, which is where all your end users are going to log in, right? Even your procurement personnel, if they're just coming in to look at, what's out here, the different tiles, all your forms are going to be built here as well. And P2P, and I'll show P2P in a sec, but P2P is going to be mostly for your admins, your finance personnel, your finance admin, your procurement managers, your contract managers. That's going to be all over. Reporting manager. That's going to be a lot of stuff will be done in P2P. For the most part, most of the majority of the folks that have access to SAP Ariba Snap are going to spend 80% of those folks are going to be logging directly into Guided By. Okay, so as you can see, I'm logged in as myself. Oh, I have 133 notifications. I have one item in my shopping cart, and then I have some additional options here as well. So over here, I can shop, I can approve requests, and then my request is that I have submitted. I also have some admin features as well that are listed here. And then under my profile, you'll see that I have the ability to change my profile, and this is all controlled by, admin rights, right? If we allow a user to change their profile, they would come here to change. I could delegate my authority. I can activate the mobile device feature, right? So yes, we can activate what we call the mobile device feature, where we can shop and we can approve via iPhone, Samsung, iPad. So we have a mobile device feature as well. And then I can set up and change my email notification preferences, okay? Each end user will have that particular option, right? And it all depends on, the requirement behind the procurement team and what we're going to allow our end users to change setup, okay? Alrighty, so buying channels. So the first buying channel I want to talk about, oh, I forgot, quick links. So here we have quick links. We have request on behalf of and request by company code, okay? So the first buying channel that I want to demonstrate is a catalog purchase. So as you can see, I have IT goods, and these are all tiles. These are tiles, category tiles, right? So I have IT goods, office supplies, advertising, printing, so on and so on. We have some different additional information here or down below, additional tiles here related to some common actions, right? Procurement reporting, some marketplace stuff that we're working on, and then managing invoicing, okay? Keep in mind that this particular site is used by somewhere about 1,000 different people daily or weekly, right? So we try to accommodate as much information here, or we try to include as much uh, information that we possibly can to accommodate, our test users, okay? So for the sake of the demo, I am going to just go ahead and create a catalog request. Okay, so I'm an end user and I'm looking for, something to carry my laptop in. So I'm just going to say laptop sleeve, right? So notice there's pre-text, there's pre-type here. So let's just go to laptop sleeve and let's pull up a laptop sleeve. While this is searching here, basically what we're doing is the system is checking all of our company catalogs, or checking the system-loaded company catalogs to see if there's anything related to a laptop sleeve. As you see, there is a laptop sleeve here that is available, right? But also here are our spot buy catalog options as well. In our demo site here, we also have spot buy turned on. So as you can see, I just ran a simple search for a laptop sleeve and it returned one item from my company catalog, but there's an additional 105 items available as well, right? So let's just say, for the heck of it, let's just take this sleeve and just say, yeah, let's just search for laptop. Just want to show you guys the difference here, right? Again, we're searching our company catalog. Let's see what happens now. So now we're showing a MacBook, we're showing a sleeve case cover protective bag, and a MacBook Airbook, and now our results have changed, right? So now I'm showing all results from SpotBuy that are basically, related to my keyword laptop, okay? SpotBuy is another buying channel, right? This is something that you can show your procurement team when you're demoing, right? Here's another option. So let's just go ahead and buy a sleeve bag. And this has actually been set up that we must order one or more, or we must make a purchase of 2 items. So I'm going to add 2 of these laptop sleeve covers to my cart. I have something that's previously that was loaded, so I'm going to remove my consulting tiered prices and come back to that in a minute. But let's see, I'm ready to check out. Okay. Again, we are ordering a catalog item, laptop sleeve. So as you can see, my item has been loaded, it has been sent. I can hit send request, and based on my spend authority or my spend limit threshold, this will automatically approve and go out the door, right? I could send this and it'll be done. So basically, your end user could create or buy a sleeve case cover within a minimum of 5 clicks, right? Simple, fast, right? But before I hit submit request, I want to point out a couple things here, which is our ship to, our charge to, right? And this is for our more advanced users, right? Not so much just an end user just coming to buy something on a, or needs a pen or needs a case, right? Of course, their ship to is going to all default from their user profile, right? Their accounting information, which cost center. That should also default from their user profile. But let's just say I'm ordering this sleeve on behalf of someone else, okay? So what I could simply do is go to Manage Details here for Charge To, and this is now we're opening up our procurement persona's eyes. They're saying, oh, I can change the cost center. Okay, cool. I could change the account assignment from cost center to say, asset or whatever the case may be. I can change the category from material to whatever. The cost center here, account type. I think we have some different options here regarding account type. Yeah, cost center. Okay.
Hey Eric,
Yeah.
sorry quickly, can you maybe reduce the size of the screen a bit because folks are kind of having trouble
Okay.
um, because there's a lot of scrolling that's happening, so it's kind of hard to follow along. So just a little bit, yeah.
Is that better?
I think is that good, guys? Don't just respond on the chat and
And the speed up. Okay. Is that good? Okay.
I think it's good for now, Eric.
All
I'll
right.
chime in if it's needed.
Okay, just let me know.
Yeah.
I could always change it back. Okay. All right. So we have the charge to, ship to, and then what's really cool here, guys, is the details around the item that we just added to our shopping cart, right? So here you're going to see your accounting information, okay, for that particular line item. Now, if I had multiple items here, it would also have accounting, and you can actually have accounting for different or multiple items, okay? The shipping information, of course, is at the line level. Attachments, if I wanted to add an attachment. And of course, if I want to add any comments that I want to share with the supplier or internal comments. And then there's a section for other, okay? But most importantly here, guys, all the accounting information is captured. The supplier information, part number, our ship to, um, all the details are here. And one last key thing here as well is our approval process, right? So as you can see, my manager, Alex, must approve all purchases, right? But this particular purchase is less than my limit, so that therefore this item will go directly into what we call PO status, right? Or fully ordered, fully approved requisition. Okay. One other key thing here I want to point out here, the three dots here. So I could copy this line, I could delete this line, I can add this item to my favorites. So it's an item that I'm purchasing on a frequent basis. Why not add it to your favorites, right? So if I copy here, I just want to show you how simple and quick I can add and copy this line. As you see, now I have two lines, okay? Now let's just say I want to change the cost center on this second line, right? So I want this bag going to this cost center and I want to apply another bag to a different cost center. Simply come here, right? Select a new cost center and done. So now I have two computer bags going to two different types of cost center. Okay. What I can do now is just send my request. And again, this is for $71. It should go, yep, directly to ordering. As you see, I'm in all green. It has been approved. Okay, and I am in ordering status. Here are the details behind my order. I'm going to click done. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to show now the purchase order. So I am in complete ordered status. Okay, and as you can see, guys, I have created purchase order 1447. Let's click on that purchase order. And now this may look familiar. This is actually jumping into what we call P2P, right? Here I can change my order. I could cancel. I can complete my receiving directly from this spot here. I can close, I can print. One key feature here, and you're going to get this quite often, well, what's the print or what's the PDF look like of the PO before it goes to my supplier? So you can show your customer here, hey, here's what the purchase order looks like for 1447, right? We have the supplier information, we have the ship to, the bill to, any special instructions on a deliver to, the PR number in which it's related to, the payment terms, and basically all the details that coincide with that item. We also have the ability to add our terms and conditions of the purchase onto on the PO print as well. Okay, so let me close this here and we'll go back. So here is also very important, and this is something that that your end user will not find in Guided By, um, is the receipts. Basically, well, they can, but I mean, this is a good view to see, okay, so has my PO been, invoiced, right? Or what's the status, okay? And I believe the end user can see this in Guided By. But as you can see, if I click on my invoice tab, you'll see that there's no invoices quite yet. And the history behind the PO basically says that PO 1447 was successfully sent to the Ariba network. So now this purchase order should be sitting with Computer Electronics Supply and ready to be either order confirmed, advanced ship notice sent, or direct invoice, or to take the PO and flip it directly into an invoice and send it back to us via the Ariba network. Okay, let's go ahead and navigate back to our PR. So again, this basically shows the detail, right, for each line, our accounting assignment, more in a more traditional P2P fashion format. Okay. What I want to do is show how this looks in Guided By now, because I think it's really key to see that as well. So let's go back to the PR and navigate back over to Guided By. Okay, so as you see, I'm back in Guided By. Let me just click on my home tab here, or click on my SAP Ariba icon, go back to our home page. Okay, now under our three little lines here, I'm going to do the drop down. I'm going to go to My Request, right? And look at that order. Should be right at the top of the list. And yes, it is. So you can see these are all my orders that I've placed in the last 3 months. Okay. Um, Listed out as the PR number, the purchase order number, and what's really important here, guys, is the status, right? Ordered, submitted. I have 3 bids and a buy here that it was awarded. We'll talk about that in a minute. Something that may be awaiting quotes, right? So I have the option to create a 3 bids and a buy. So I also have a contract here that's set up with tiered pricing. All that has been ordered, awaiting quotes, or it's been submitted. So all of my orders here, my requests, are broken down. Okay, so if I wanted to just see all my requests or all my quotes, I can come and take a look at, the two different the two orders requests that I have that are related to an RFQ. So as you see, I have RFQ 508, I have RFQ 507. All of my items that need some type of receiving done. Okay. Of course, the item that I just ordered, which is PO 1447, right? Remember the 2 sleeves, the 2 different lines, 2 different cost centers. I can go ahead and hit receive here. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's hit receive. Come on, okay. Takes me to my receiving screen here. And then I could click on the receipt here, or I can just click my receive button. For the sake of the demo, I'm just going to go ahead and quickly receive. Ultimately, your end user would not receive until they receive the product, right? Um, but if I hit accept all, now my receiving is complete and I can submit. And one key thing to point out here is, okay, so when we created the requisition, we created um, a purchase requisition, which was PR, whatever the five numbers were that followed. And then once the PR was created, or once the PR was fully approved, that was then generated what we call a purchase order or a PO document, which was PO 1447. Now, with the receipts document, we're also creating an RC document. So it's very key that your customer understands the different types of prefixes that are in SAP Ariba Snap. So as you can see, PO 14425, right? This here is C64, which is this particular item is related to a contract. We'll talk about that in a sec, which is C64 version 5, and this is release number 65 against that particular contract setup. Okay, but we mentioned receipt, right? So if I go back over here to receive, you will see here that there is an RC document that has been created. And it is in composing RC 1496 is here. So we talked about different types of receipts. If I click on that receipt, you'll see here that it's RC 1496 test for demo. Okay? And this is for my consulting, right? RFQ for IT conservative. This receipt is actually still open. I have not received an invoice yet, and there should be a approval flow built around. Yes, we talked about approval flows. So as you see, this receipt has an approval flow built around it. It is the way we have set up the tool here is that the requester needs to receive the order. Okay, that is why I've been added to the approval flow. Now, just like any approval flow in the system, and I think this is very important to know, I can actually add a serial approver here, or I can add a watcher, right? So as long as the end user, or as long as the user that you'd like to add to the approval flow is set up in the system as an active user, we can add them. So let me just see if I'm going to just see if my buddy Chad Knoll is available here, because I want him to actually be added, and this can be utilized in any scenario, right? Um, you know, I've seen a lot where on the requisition side where you want to order a laptop or desktop, and additional approvers may be added as a watcher, things of that nature, right? So system-wide, out of the box, any end user can add an approver or a watcher, right? They can never delete, they can never modify the pre-configured out of the box or pre-configured. They cannot modify the approval flow that's active for that particular document, meaning we have a system control approval flow for requisitioning. Our end users cannot modify that, okay? They can only add or remove the items on that. So if they add it, they can remove it. So let's just put a reason here, test 101, okay, and I'm going to be an approver. If I hit OK, notice now here, so notice now that myself because I added after, right, I am now pending, right? Notice Chad Knoll is the active approver, and my tooltip did follow, test 101. So this can basically be done with any approval flow. So let me just navigate back over to Guided By, and I want to do this on the requisition side as well. How are we doing on time? 4:53? Okay, good. I want to take it slow because I think it's very important that, for this particular training is that we understand the full potential of a catalog order, a non-catalog order, and then we'll get into the more advanced procurement features of like contract, things of that nature. But this is kind of the basics. So I'm hoping that, we're all getting this, but this is the basics of, what the system can do, the functionality behind it. Okay. Then, so any questions out there?
No, Eric, I think we're good. There are a few questions, but we can keep
Okay.
moving on.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we go back over here to guided by, and I'm going to show one last thing here on a catalog purchase, and then we'll move over to some different buying channels, just so that we can keep moving along, because I still want to show, I want to talk about receiving types, and I want to talk about the out-of-the-box approval flow, and then highlight some reporting features, okay? But I think it's really important to understand the different concepts here behind, the approval flow. So as you can see here, I have something here. I want to show one more example on the approval flow. So I'm looking for a PR here. Let's take a look here. So let's go to all my requests. Okay. And I should have something in submitted status. Yes, I have a graphic designer purchase here that's in submitted status. So let's just open up this guy here. Okay, so I built this order earlier just to show this example here. So I went out and I grabbed one of our forms. So I'm looking for a graphic designer, right? And his rate is $100, and I'm going to need him for 10 hours for a total of $1,000, right? Um, so what I want to do here for the purpose of the demo, right, I want to take a look at my approver here, but I think I want to edit this guy here first, right, because I'm in submitted status. So I'm going to have to withdraw my request. So now as an end user, I've sent something out to my approver, and now I say, oh, wait, I need to make some changes. So actually, I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to withdraw. Just put a little comment, need to make changes uh, to the approval flow. Okay, so let's go ahead and withdraw the request. And notice the status, right? We're going to go from submitted status and we're going to go to withdraw, or it's going to go back to composing status. Okay, so here's my item here, and notice the Alex is no longer. But what I want to point out here is, so here's my pre-configured, and your end users will see this here, right? So here's where we're looking, right? So as you can see, this is the pre-configured approval flow for this particular purchase based on this particular dollar value, right? One thing I want to point out here is that if I change, let's just say I change this to say 100,000 hours. I want to show you guys how our approval flow changes, okay? So now we're looking at a purchase that's $10 million, right? So based on the value of this purchase requisition, we now have a new approval flow, right? Remember, it was only $1,000 before where only my manager needed to approve. Based on our configuration of the requisition approval flow, now we need the approval of the CFO, the CEO, and the finance department, right? So we talked about building out the approval flows based on dollar threshold. There's some options here, and we'll talk a little bit about approval flows, but not in great detail, but we have some different options and we can set up. So I'm just going to bring this back down to only 100 items. Okay, 100 hours, I'm sorry. Okay, and so now we just have Alex and our finance team that are drawn onto the approval flow. But let's just say your end user wanted to actually add an additional approver, right? Or a watcher. So let's just add a watcher here. And I'm going to choose the first person. Actually, you know what? Let me add Chad Knoll again. So let me add C Knoll as our watcher. search for Chad. Okay, here he is, and now I have watcher selected. I'm going to choose Mr. Null as a watcher and hit OK. So now as you see, Chad Null has been added as a watcher. Okay, and I can delete this because I am the end user who added. Now if I submit my request, check out the approval flow, we'll see that Chad is added as a watcher slash approver. Okay, so let's move over to now a non-catalog purchase, and then we'll also talk a little bit about spot buy. We're going to do both of those in the same. So let's just say your end user, and based on pre-configuration, out of the box setup, when we hand off and deliver the site to the partner, we have for most purposes, most countries, spot buy is available, right? We're also working on getting our marketplace set up, but spot buy is becoming popular in many countries. So I just want to highlight it real quick. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but let's just say I'm searching for an item that's not available. I'm just going to search for a hammer. I know that a hammer is not available in our company catalog, so it should bring up additional results from our spot buy catalog, right? So just on my search results, okay, I search for hammer. We do actually have a company catalog, right, that has some keywords set up with it by from supplier McMaster, right? So if I wanted to, I could go and check out the McMaster buy from supplier catalog, the punch out here, or I can go out to eBay, right? So let's just view all items on spot buy. Our marketplace here. And great news, my hammer came right back and it's $17.70. I'm going to add this to our cart. And this is going to be this is going to be for those one-off purchases. These are going to be those hard to find parts that a customer, they got to have it. The McMaster doesn't make these parts anymore. And the only place we can find this is in the spot buy eBay marketplace. Okay. So if I take that and update that and add to cart, right? Although we made the purchase from spot buy, it's still going to follow the exact same accounting structure, right? It's going to follow, the setup of my user profile. It's going to look, the process is going to look is seamless to the end user. Okay. So that's basically buying channel going out and getting what we call a spot buy or creating a spot buy purchase. As you can see, the spot buy supplier is set up here. Okay, and this is huge for our procurement persona, because we're controlling Maverick spend, right? We have visibility to these one-off purchases that are going out the door, right? So now we can capture all that spend in one place. Okay. I'm not going to send this here. I'm just going to pull back here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about forms and contract requests, because I think it's very important that we understand, our options here for the other buying channels that are available. Okay. So I know for a fact that I have in our IT goods and services, I have a non-catalog form available. So let's just say I've searched, all catalogs. I can't find exactly what I'm looking for. I definitely have to have this item, and I need to create an ad hoc request or a non-catalog order. So we've pre-built what we call an ad hoc item, and this is basically just a form that's built in Guided By that allows our end users to create a request of an ad hoc item. So basically it's really simple. So I have one click, two clicks. Now I'm in the form and I'm ready to start filling out. Okay, so let's say product name, we'll just call this new drill. Okay, information technology, the category I can change. Let's just call the category building and construction and maintenance services. Okay. Now, if I go back to IT, Let's just go back to information. I'm going to browse all. I wanted to show you that we have some pre-configured preferred suppliers that automatically populates based on the commodity code that's selected. Okay, so I'm going to search information technology here. Let's, I should pull up, let's see here, information. Okay, let's try, let's see here. Here we go. Let's go information technology. Let's just grab one of these 4 trees here. I want to see what populates here. See if those particular suppliers will come back. And I believe it's all commodity code driven. No, I selected the wrong category, but that's okay. We can show that later. But anyways, let's just go ahead and do it. Building and construction and maintenance services. Right, there's no suppliers here selected, but I can, if I know, if the supplier's already set up in the tool itself or in SAP Ariba Snap, if the supplier is set up, I can go and select. Otherwise, you can leave the supplier empty, the supplier field empty, and have this particular request route to, say, a category manager or a buyer, right, where they can go out and take a look and find the correct supplier. Okay, so let's just say our supplier is somewhere, let's just say Direct Paper Supplies. I'll choose the first one. So I've added our supplier, right? Show recommended suppliers. This is where if we had any preferred suppliers directly related to this particular category or this particular commodity code, this is where we would populate those particular recommended suppliers. Description, we'll just say test. I just need one of these new drills, right? And I think the price is going to be like $250 USD, right? Add to cart. And I'm going to delete my hammer from my previous cart and check out. So basically from this ad hoc form, right, this one-off purchase that we need follows the same process, approval flow, right, accounting information, accounting structure, the ship to defaults from my user profile, my cost center information, all set up for default. Seamless to the end user, all this stuff is done behind the scenes. Okay, that's a non-catalog purchase. Now let's talk a little bit about invoicing against the contract. A little more, we're going to take a little step higher, and this is basically geared towards, our more advanced procurement personnel. But I think where we lack in some of our deployments is getting the procurement persona to fully understand the capabilities around SAP Ariba Snap, right? Because we know we can do a catalog purchase, we know that we have spot buy, we can do a non-catalog order, okay, punch out, SIF catalog hosted, but now we have this thing that's called contract compliance, and how we can, manage spend based on the contract compliance that we've set up for a particular item, for a particular service, whatever the case may be, right? So we have a couple different things here that are set up. So the one that I'm going to show two different scenarios for contracts, right? I'm going to show an item that's been set up for tiered pricing that's linked to a contract, and then I'm going to show a service of, some consulting that's also linked to a contract as well. So the first item I'm going to show is we have a laptop here that is set up with tiered pricing. So if I select, if I go to laptops and notebooks here, right, on our tile, I'm going to see that I have a Apple MacBook 12-inch, right? Notice here, when I click the drop down, I have a couple different options. So if I buy 2 to 4, my price is $12.29. If I buy 5 to 9, my price drops. And if I go 10 or more laptops, my price even drops further, right? So if I add this guy to my cart, Two things I want to point out here. Uh, One is my quantity is currently at 2. By increasing my quantity, my price decreases based on the configuration of what's been set up behind the scenes, right? What's been set up behind the scenes that's linking to our contract, okay? So if I go here and I go quantity to, let's just say I want to increase this guy here to, let's go up. Notice the price is 12.9, 12.29. All right, let's just make this 12 laptops because I want that price to completely decrease. Notice the price will change to 1090, right? As simple as that, right? We've set up this particular laptop so the system knows that we need to decrease based on the number of quantity. This particular item also has a policy built in, right? Pre-configured, right? So this is a policy that we will deliver on day one, right? An IT asset time frame policy. Please specify the reason for buying this item. Okay. So within Guided By, we have the ability to also set up particular policies. Okay. So in this case here, and I mean, you can vary. It all depends on how you want to set up your policies. But, we'll just say this is a renewal, or actually, you know what? This is going to be a gift. We're buying 12 new laptops as a gift. Okay. Notice my approval flow based on my dollar threshold is drawn in, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this guy here, make sure everything looks good. The accounting, if I wanted to set up accounting here, one thing I want to highlight here, and this is again out of the box, on the accounting, so I've ordered 12 different laptops, right? And this is really key for your procurement team, and especially your AP finance, to understand that we have the ability also to do split accounting, right? Again, guys, SAP Ariba Snap is still P2P, traditional large enterprise Ariba, right? Dialed down, but we still have the same functionality that P2P has. So yes, we can do split accounting. So basically, let's just say, okay, so for we're going to split by percentage. Okay, so let's just say I want 50% of the total cost to go towards cost center 4120, and then I want 50% to go towards, let's just change the cost center. I want 50% of the spend to go to cost center. So 4120, let me change line 2. I will change line 2 to 1210. So here we have 12 laptops, right, as a gift, buying them going to 2 different cost centers, okay, based on the split accounting that we've set up by percentage, 50%. Right? Sky's the limit. I've seen the breakdown of 10% to different cost centers. You can also break it down by quantity. So you have some options here. So as you see, split accounting type, you can percentage, quantity, or amount. We're utilizing the percentage feature here, but those are the other options as well. Okay, so once that's completed, right, you can just close the accounting tab here, right? And then view again the shipping, and then you can set up multiple ship here for each line if needed. And then I'm going to just send this request. Not going to approve it, but I'm going to go back and show one that's already been approved. Okay, let's hit done. And we're back to our home page. Now in my request, I have some previous orders that I submitted that are here that I could take a look at that have already been fully ordered and completely received. So if I look at this particular item here, this is a laptop sleeve, or here's my lap book. I'm sorry, that's clicked on the wrong one. Let me go back. I want to look at my laptop sleeve, and this purchase was done a few days ago, no, actually 2 weeks ago. but I want to show the fact that it's fully received, okay? And I believe I have an invoice here that goes along with it. So if I click on the purchase order, I'm going to take a look and see if I have an invoice. Yes. Okay, cool. So I have an invoice that goes along with this as well. And this is a demo that we did in our Chicago workshop, right? So I've gone into that PO 1319, right? On the summary tab, here's the PO. It's basically quantity of two. Amount was $35.98. Okay. My receipt, we talked about receipts earlier, has been fully approved. Okay. If we click on the receipt RDID, it's RCID, you'll see here the approval flow, done, approved, the history behind that. I approved it, right? I edited line one, which means I basically accepted line one item. But most importantly here is also the invoice piece of it as well, right? So as you can see, I have an invoice that came in. My three-way match was completed, right? The invoice came in, right? The invoice matched to the PO, pulled that accounting information from that purchase order for that invoice so we can drive our accounting onto our invoices, onto our invoice. We had some header level tax, our rate was 6%, and this all came over from our invoice from the PO flip on the supplier network, okay? The references here for the invoice, as you see, there's a couple documents that are listed here. We have our purchase order, 1319. We have our receipts document that shows fully approved. And now we have what we call our invoice reconciliation document. Okay, if I click on our invoice reconciliation document, it's basically the invoice that appears in the reconciliation. It's a reconciliation document, right? There was an exception when this first came in. When this invoice came in, there was an exception that fired. And that exception that fired, based on our invoice exceptions, was PO receive quantity variance. What that basically said is that, hey, we have a PO 1319, we have an invoice 123 that came in, but there's no receiving. So the exception engine triggered, right? Gave me a notification that I have an exception and that I need to complete receiving. Once I logged in, realized, okay, yep, I did receive these guys. I completed the receiving task, and then the invoice reconciliation document cleared and went out for payment. There we had our three-way match. We had a PO, receipt, invoice. Three-way match, clear, go for payment, right? So here's a great example of our PO received quantity variance, right? I think we'll cover this in another session where we talk about invoice exceptions and how to configure different tolerances. But this is the full end-to-end basically of the invoice coming from the supplier back into our Nimbus guided by site, basically. Okay, how we're doing on time? It's okay, 5:17. Cool, moving right along.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah,
Quick question, and this is something that's going on in the chat. Contract compliance, you're going to be covering that too, right?
yeah, I'm going to show it right now.
Okay,
I'm going to
all
go
right.
right into it right now, contract compliance. I don't know if we'll have time to dig into how to configure and how to create. Maybe we will. I mean, seeing how we have folks looking, we'll do that. But here's what we'll do. We'll go in, we'll go back to Guided By, and I'll do a demo of a contract compliance item. And then we'll go look at that particular contract in P2P and show how it's set up and how the
Right.
spend, right? The accumulation of the spend.
Yeah,
Cool.
because that's what some of the folks are just find on the phone. I'm sorry, on the chat. They just want to know how they can set up contract because you don't technically need Contracts Pro, right, to set up contracts
No,
in the system.
no, contract
Yeah.
compliance is a part of a SNAP purchase, right?
Yep.
Yep. So let's go here. So first I'll give you guys the front end. So we have an item that is set up against the contract. It's basically a consulting fee. So I'm just going to go to find goods and services and I'm going to search for consulting. Here we go. Come on. Okay. How's the size of the screen? Is it still okay?
Good
Good.
now.
Okay. Seems a little slow on my end. Hmm. Give me a second here. System appears to be running. Okay. All right, so let me try searching again for consulting here. Okay. Come on. Bear with me, guys. I think my system's running a little laggy here. Running a little slow. Actually, let me go back to our home page here. Refresh our guided by page. Okay, let's search here now. Okay. What the heck? All right, here we go. This should do it. Sorry about that, guys. So again, I'm searching for service consulting. Now I know that we have an item that's already been pre-set up, that's set up with tiered pricing, and it's an hourly rate for a consultant. So I'm just going to add one of these to our cart, and just basically the purpose behind this is show how an end user can go out and create a purchase. But most importantly, I'm going to jump over to P2P and show you the guts and the core behind the actual purchase itself. Okay. And this is here, I mean, this is pretty seamless for an end user, right? But look here, as you see, this particular item that we've set up, pre-configured, is linked to Contract 64 version 5, right? So what that means is that this is version 5, it's been amended 5 different times, right? So once we create a full PO, then we'll have an additional, it'll be a release of version 5 of Contract 64. So notice that I'm changing the hours. So I've gone from 1 hour to 4 hours because I have tiered pricing set up, and now my price drops to $95. Right. So now let's just change this to 15 hours, and the price now should drop to 90 hours, and it does. Right. So let me just go ahead and send my request and done. So right there, I've quickly searched for consultant, change the hours to 15, and then submit it to request. Right? As simple as that. It's done, and it's auto-ordered, and it's out the door. Now, let's take a look at this in P2P. Right? So I'll go to my request here, my consulting tiered pricing, and notice it's no longer a PO. It is now C64 V5 R70. So if I click on C64 R70, right? Because I have special privileges, I can go look at that particular contract, right? So if you see here, the reference of the PO, but there's also a reference for the contract, right? So I'm going to click on C64 V5, and this should take me directly into that contract and how it's basically set up. After this here, I'll show you guys exactly how to set up a contract, right? So as you see, we're in Contract 64 tiered pricing. Right? Our first tab shows our basic summary of the contract. Okay, the title, right? The contact person. It's an item level contract. It's a standalone agreement. The effective date for this particular contract, Okay, the purchase order tied to it, the company code, who the vendor is, right? Can we create a subscription for a non-catalog item? Yes. Is release required? Yes. Here's what's really cool that every procurement person is looking for. How much has been spent against this particular contract? 33,000, right? Reconcile amount, we've got invoices for $4,152, right? We can set up commitments. We can set up maximum limits, item limits, our release limits, additional approvers, expiration, right? Preloaded amount, forecasted amounts. We have different options here, okay? Payment terms, okay? Appendixes. So that's pretty much the core guts. Oh, the pricing terms. Here we are. So if we look at pricing terms, you'll see that we have one item. It's called consulting tiered pricing, okay? Pricing summary, it's tiered discount. If I click on the details, we can look at the details behind this particular service, okay? So here we are. We have this particular item. We have our commodity code. We have our mapping group, right? We can select particular limits just on that particular item. We've used 33,000 on this particular item. Okay. Looks like we have to do some changes to the cost center, but that should be fine. Let me just navigate back. Also on Contract 64, there can be a pre-built approval flow if needed, right? Contract request form, separate document, we can have up an approval flow built out, right? Any order, right? So here are the orders or the releases, I believe, against this here. So here's the history of every order that's been submitted against Contract 64, right? All the way from 1, 2, all the way down the line, right? You can see the different statuses of each order, okay? One cool thing here is that you can also go into, let's say, a previous R17, right? So I'm looking at now just that particular release number 17. Well, has it been invoiced? Ah, yes, it has, and it's reconciled, $308, right? So that's been completely reconciled, okay? So this is all, behind the scenes information about, C64 V5, right? Receipts, the receipts document here is listed for that particular item as well. And then let's just go back. I could change this release 70. Actually, I want to go all the way back to C64.
Hey, Eric, while that's loading, right?
Mhm.
Can you also just quickly cover the points on how do you set that up, how to set up a contract?
Yep, I'm going to go there right now, Denzel.
Yeah,
Are we
because
good on time? Okay. Okay.
that seems to be a pretty big question that everyone on the chat's been having.
Okay. Alrighty. So here on the guided by home page, I can go directly back into Ariba P2P. And there's a couple different ways. And what we've set up for our demo, for what we set up for this site here is what we call web jumpers, right? So we have our URL for guided by, but there's also going to be a separate URL that's just for P2P, okay? So in the bottom here, there's a couple web jumpers here that are listed. If I click on let me just click on, actually, yeah, I think professional procurement. This should take me directly to P2P. Yes, okay, here we go. It opened back up. So as you can see, now I'm actually in P2P, okay? This is my P2P homepage, right? I'm still in our Nimbus mid-market demo realm, right? But now, because I'm a contract admin, I'm a reporting manager, I now have a new dashboard, and this is looking like, this is P2P, right? So creating a contract, very simple, very easy. So if I go create, I have a couple different options here based on my permissions. But for the purpose of this here, we're going to create a request or contract request. So I'll create a contract request. What would you like to create? I want to create a contract request. Okay. So simple here. Okay. So let's just basically give our contract request a title, just for a demo. right? I could give it a description. Okay, physical location, I have an option. If is this contract related to an existing contract ID? Um, should the related contract ID be included as part of the system? No, we'll just leave that no. I am the contact person, my name here. This is basically set up by purchasing unit, so my purchasing unit appears. Contract type. Okay, have a couple options. Is it going to be a supplier level, catalog level, commodity code, or item? We're going to leave it at item level for now, right? And that'll give us the ability to create, a pricing term. Okay. Standalone. Is it standalone or is it tied to a sub-agreement or a master agreement? Couple options here. We'll go standalone. Effective date. We want this particular contract to be effective on the 17th, which is today, and it'll go to the 31st of the month. So 2 weeks, right? Evergreen, is it evergreen? Yes or no? We'll leave as no for now. Our purchasing org, right? We can have this contract tied to different, to a different purchasing org or a company code. Who our vendor is. Let's go ahead and grab a vendor. We'll just say Indus Consulting, and then create subscription from a non-catalog. Let's just say yes. One key thing here is release required, right? The example I showed from Guided By was release required. You can actually select release not required, and it gives us some additional options, right? So release is not required. So now, are we going to allow invoicing against the contract, right? We have a supplier, right? We have a contract, right? We have a supplier that's set up on the Ariba network. We have this contract. Supplier can go into their supplier.ariba account on the network. They can pull up our account. They can, do a create invoice against a contract, right? So do we want to allow that default? Do we want to default invoice requesters from the contract? Allow suppliers to add non-catalog items to the invoice. Typically, best practices is usually set as no. Allow suppliers to edit, invoice unit price, no. So we have some additional features, fields that open up just by selecting is release required, yes or no. So for the sake of the demo, I'm just going to say release is required, right? I'm basically done here. US dollar. I believe we have multiple currencies that are available. For this demo, it's going to be US dollar. Okay. Are there any limits? Moving on to step 2 of the contract, right? Do I want to have a minimum commitment for this contract? What are the maximum limits, if any, right? One thing we do need to put in here is the total price of the contract, right? We're just going to say $5,000. It's going to be a small contract. Okay, our max limit is $5,000. Okay, are there any release limits for each item, right? You could set up minimum and maximum. The approvers, if there are any additional approvers you want to set up for this particular contract. Notification list, the expiration, forecast spend. We'll leave all that as is, right? We'll move over now. We'll hit next and go to what we call our pricing terms. Now, this is where you're going to add, your items here, okay? Oh, cool. So it looks like there's already 2 catalog items that are set up for this particular supplier, right? Remember I selected Indus Consulting, or these are actually unspecified, right? So there's a couple items out here. But you know what? I'm going to hit, nope, I want to just create, excuse me, I'm going to create my own item. So I'm going to create a non-catalog item and add it to my cart. So again, let's just kind of stay on the same lines. We'll go building and construction material services as our commodity. Negotiated price, let's just say $150. And let's give this guy a part number. We'll go XYZ, or we'll just say something along those lines as our part number. Excuse me, guys. And I'm going to hit OK. And actually, I need a material group here. Let's change our material group to services. Oh, okay, I need to change the commodity code. Excuse me. Let's try Notice, guys, there's a mapping going on here. So these are some configurations that are done behind the scenes, right, in our mapping files that says, hey, that 007 material group does not correlate with the commodity code that you've selected. So let me just see if I can. I believe it should be IT services of some sort. Let me just take a look. I'm hoping this is covering what was being asked.
Yeah, I think this is helpful, Eric.
Okay, cool. Because I think there's a lot of doubt. Does Ariba Snap come with contract compliance? Are we able to build a contract? Um,
Right.
so I'm looking for so I'm looking for a. I'm getting this error message here. I want to move through this here. Let's just try information services. See if that's linked to the material group here. Come on, system, don't go slow now. What time is it? 5:35.
Yeah. So in the interest of time, Eric, if this doesn't work, I think we should keep moving forward.
Oh yeah, we will. No, I don't think it worked. So the mapping's not correct. Okay. All right, so we won't add an item here, but we can go back and look at C64. So the point is here that we can add an item here, right? You know what I'll do for the sake of it? I'll just add that catalog item from an unspecified supplier and see if that works. Yep, there it is. And let's hit done. Uh, Experiment, it does not exist. Okay, yeah, we need to fix our data. No big deal. So anyways, I won't be able to add an item to the contract, but we'll go look at our existing. But for the sake of it, but basically the next step would be setting up any milestones, right? You can set up milestones. You can set up additional access control here, right? You can set up payment terms for this particular contract, right? Appendixes, and then of course the summary of the contract that we created. Right, I'm not going to click next or exit, but um, and then basically there's four tabs here. The pricing terms would appear here, and then the approval flow, right? The approval flow would be listed here as well. And you can build out any type of approval flow that you like. So really quick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this request and I'm going to show you guys C64, an existing contract that's already out there in P2P. So if I go to contract here, let me just search for contract C64. Let's change my search criteria to contract. And let's go C64. And I think I may have already shown this, but I think it's really key to understand and see. So C64, the pricing terms, right? The tiered discount setup, right? So as you can see, this was set up with tiered discount, minimum quantity 2, and this is the percent that is taking off the line total, right? So anything above 8, we're going to have a 10% discount. Okay, and just from the summary page, guys, you see here, the core of the particular contract itself. All right, so that's a high-level, quick overview of contract compliance. So yes, it is available. It's quick and easy. If my data would have been A-OK here, I could have easily submitted that and sent it over, and the contract would have been out there and ready for use, right? Typically, when we create an item, right? If we create an item, a non-catalog item, it takes maybe anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours for that particular catalog item to be published, right? So that we can utilize that when we're shopping, right? But if there's a catalog item that's already tied to that particular supplier or that item is out there, we could pull that item directly into the contract and it could be ready to go once that contract is fully approved. Okay. So let's just really quick, I'm going to take a step back and jump over back into our PowerPoint presentation and make sure I'm covering everything here. So I did want to touch base a little bit on receiving and just talk a little bit about the capabilities of receiving, right? So as you see, guys, there's three different main areas of receiving configuration, right? There's receiving types, there's the methods behind, and approval rules, and then of course there's parameters that are tied to receiving. Not going to go into great detail, but I mean this is something that definitely should be shared in the procurement persona and discussed. And they need to and our customer needs to fully understand, the different types of auto receiving versus manual receiving, okay? By utilizing receiving parameters, right, based on a total amount, what happens if I set this parameter up for auto receive, right? Or can I, or a lot of times we'll get a question, can we auto receive anything less than $500 or $100, right? Yes, we have receiving rules that are set up or receiving parameters that we can, play with and work with. But for the most case, I mean, these are the different types, right? And, will my goods be received by amount, count, or automatically? Those are some questions that we need to be asking our procurement team. This document is also out there in our toolbox, right, with the full receiving PowerPoint presentation, but I thought that this was very important to share with you guys. This here just talks about the couple different receiving types that can be done, right? Receiving types determine the method of receiving items against a purchase order or a contract release, right? There's manual and there's auto receiving, right? Some of the parameters configuration does take precedent. Example, this is key, right? If a manual receive on a commodity code, but a parameter indicates auto receive based on amount, the parameter takes precedent over the manual receiving by commodity, right? So these are some things that we need to keep in mind when we're sitting down with our customer and talking about different types of receiving manual versus auto. Next up are, this just talks a little about the different types of receiving types, right? We can manual receive by quantity, by count, or, by amount, okay? Again, auto receiving type, system received, auto receipt based on, when the order was generated or based on invoice, auto receiving below a dollar threshold amount. We talked about that. And then how we can define different receiving types, right? So there's a couple different ways that we can set this up. We can set it up by our commodity code, or we can also set up receiving by basically a part number, right? So for example, we want all office supplies to be auto received under a certain dollar threshold, right? So we could tie that in utilizing our customer admin feature. We can go and tie that in and plug that in with the commodity code for office supplies set up as auto receive for anything that's less than, $100 or $500 or whatever the requirement might be. Okay. Approval process. This is something I know I'm kind of moving very fast here. Again, this recording and presentation will be out on our Jam site, but I want to talk a little bit about approval process and just kind of give a high level overview of what's configured and what's sent out on day one. So really quick, this is just a quick snapshot of our requisition approval flow, right? Pre-configured out of the box, right? As you can see, based on different scenarios, the requester, supervisor approves for anything greater than $600, followed by the chain of command, right? When we say followed by the chain of command, this is going to be the dollar threshold that's going to be set up with each user's profile, okay? And then, of course, we pre-configure any commodity code approvers, if there's any contract exceptions, budget validation, right? This is all pre-configured in our requisition approval flow. Next, we have our receipt approval flow that covers any commodity central receivers, right? If there's any receipt related directly to a contract, we pull on the contract manager. And of course, as you've seen in my demo, the requester also. Okay. the invoice reconciliation approval flow. Okay, this is really important when we're explaining, right? So we have our exception handler rule, our credit memo rule, non-PO invoice requester chain of command, validation, and cap rules. And of course, if there's an invalid requester rule. So this is all pre-configured, pre-built. Last but not least, we have our user profile approval flow. Okay, so if we allow our users to change their profile, right, we can build approval flow around that, right? So our procurement folks need to understand that as well. Okay, reporting. Now, before I go into reporting, we have about 15 minutes. I want to jump over back to P2P only because I think it's very important to understand receiving, reporting, approval rules, and where those three can be maintained. It's not going to be in a guided by. This is going to be a P2P feature, and this is all driven by group permission. So with that said, let me just minimize this here, and let me jump back over to P2P. So for those of you that are familiar with Ariba, traditional Ariba, we have access to core administration. Okay, we're able to, let me just pull this back up. We're able to utilize the core administration feature in P2P. Now, Guided By does have some admin features that pertain just to Guided By, but if we want to do anything like configuring approval rules, setting up auto receive, things of that nature, reporting, then we need to navigate to P2P. So what we have here, if I go to manage and go to core administration, oh, what happened here? Okay, let me just try logging back in. Probably timed me out. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me just log back in. Okay, here we go. Alrighty, so let's go here. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Give me 1 second here. Try this one more time. Oh, that's weird. Then so for some reason I can't. Let me try just logging directly into P2P here.
Okay. Maybe just log out and log back
Yeah,
in.
I think I've been on for so long that the system's like confused. They don't know what I'm doing here. Okay, let me just log out. Guys, I'm going to log back into P2P. But I think it's very important for you to understand, the different, the admin feature of P2P that needs to be shared with our procurement persona. Give me 1 second here. Let me try launching this again. Okay. I think my system's freezing up. Okay. Oh my. Let's try this one more time. Okay, here we go. I think I'm logging in now, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, so as you see, I'm back into P2P, thank goodness. And if I go to manage and go to core administration, here's where you're going to find how to configure, right, receiving. So if we look down here under procure to pay manager, right, you're going to see receiving types by commodity code. So if I click this guy here, and if I search, you'll see everything that's kind of pre-configured out of the box setup, right? So we talked about commodity codes. So we can take this at a 2-digit 4-digit, 6-digit, 8-digit, granular level, right? But as you can see, so basically for any paper products with commodity code 1411, it's going to be a manual receipt received by quantity, okay? Um, Auto receipt on order date. As you can see, the different types of receiving types, we have manual receipt for some commodity codes. We have auto receipt on invoice. We have auto receipt on order date, auto receipt on due date. So a couple different options here. The other option here that we have is setting up receiving by part number, right? So if I search everything that's been set up by part number, we'll see that we have a couple suppliers here with a couple different part numbers that are set up for auto receiving based on a particular part number, right? We can wildcard um, part number using the asterisk for all parts for a particular supplier, right? So we have some options, some capabilities there. But I just wanted to highlight that real quick. The other item I wanted to highlight was our manage approval process. Okay. Again, when we pre-configure a round, guys, we're going to hand this over to our partner. We're going to set up a profile, and you will have customer administrator rights. So you will have the ability to go and manage your approval rules. You'll have the ability to manage or administer guided by. So if I just search for a requisition, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I want to show you guys exactly how we can manage our approval rules as well. So as you can see, we have a couple out here that are directly related to requisition. We always want to be looking at the active approval flow, right? So as you can see, requisition approval process guided by GB. This is what we've basically set up for our standard out-of-box template, right? We've added, right, over some time, some different nodes here, but basically it's the basics, right? Requester, supervisor, no supervisor, commodity code approvers, and then we have some additional items related directly to budget or contract, right? Simple setup, right? This is what we're going to show and demo when we sit down with the procurement persona. I know we're running a little short on time. I wish I had another 3 hours because I can talk procurement all day long, but I want to go and dive into reporting just really fast and just show exactly the details behind reporting. As you know that in Ariba, we have a couple different options related to reporting, right? We can there's prepackaged reports available, and there's also public reports available, and then there's your own personal workspace, right? Your average end user are going to be looking at their personal workspace, right? Probably they can look at the prepackaged reports, but I want to point out here real quick the capability and functionality behind that. So if I go to manage and click on prepackaged reports, right? And this is all within P2P, okay? There is a web jumper on our guided by tile that takes us directly into our prepackaged reports. But as you can see, we have, I believe there's 200 plus different reports that are out there, that are out here already pre-built. Some of the most common areas will be like purchase order reports. So if I click on purchase order reports and hit open, these are all the pre-packaged reports that are available, right, to our customers on day one. Okay, so we want to make sure that they're aware and understand. So order overviews, P-card orders, if there's any purchase order activity. All of these are pre-packaged reports that are available for our customer. Okay, so those are the pre-packaged reports. Now, if I look over here, I also have, based on my access, I can also look at if there's any public reports created. So as a report manager, right, I can create a report and make it visible to all, or I can segregate, or through visibility, right, or through access. I can control the access of a particular report. I can set up folders here, right? I can publish reports and place reports out here for the public to view. And now I also have, as an end user, I would also have the ability to look at my personal workspace. So I can actually click on a prepackaged report, right? So I'm going to just do that real quick here. How much time do we have? Okay. So if I go to manage and just go prepackaged report, and let's go to buyer settlement report, hit open. I want to save a couple minutes for open mic Q&A, so the last 5 minutes we'll do that. But I just want to click on Invoice Summary Report, right? And I want to view this report. Notice it's 2 years. I'm going to shorten this. I want to just go last 2 months, right? Let's just view the report. I don't want this running all night here, so let's just view this report. Okay, so I viewed the report. Okay, now I'll say I like this report. I didn't make any changes. Now I want to save it, right? So this is a prepackaged report that I am now going to save to my personal workspace. So if I click save, now I've taken this invoice summary report and I've saved it to my personal workspace. Okay, so if I go back to my home page and I go to manage, I can now view all of my personal workspace reports. Okay, so I've saved 3 reports to my personal workspace. Clearly I can open these up, edit, and move through that fashion. Okay. Really quick, so that covers reporting. Didn't really get into demoing too much, but we can set up a later session for just reporting itself. Spot by overview. I think then so we'll have to set up maybe another session perhaps for a spot by overview, or maybe we can
Yeah.
set up a Friday webinar. But
Yeah.
I think that's right now. I think that's all the time we have. So one thing I want to point out here, guys, is that in this presentation here will be the demo details, the instructions, and then of course, our Jam page will give you guys access to our Snap Jam, and then of course here is our team's email address to snap.coe@sap.com. So I think at this time, then, so what we could probably do is just open up the line, right, to see if there's any questions. And if there's no questions, I guess we can close the session.
Yeah. So guys, if for the folks on the chat phone, if there's any specific questions that you have for whatever Eric just presented, you can go off mute and ask the question.
And if you want to chat, and if you want to type it in, you can type it in as well. But we have a couple minutes to hang tight here for any questions, if there are any.
Yeah, Eric, there were a bunch of questions around. Sorry, was someone trying to ask a question?
Someone's typing. Kabir?
Yeah, there were.
Kabir's typing. Oh, nothing from me. Okay,
I
Alan,
think
thank
everything's
you.
good.
Cool. So you had a lot of questions here. Okay, cool. Well, guys, wow, this has been great. Hopefully, you've received enough information. The most important thing is taking your customer through an experience. And when you're working with the procurement persona, right, as we talked about, you're going to have highs and lows. You're going to have high points where you're going to need a lot of their attention, and you're going to, have, sprint 5 and 6 where you're, not going to really need them so much. But when you do have that time to work with the procurement team, you want to focus on, quality, and you want to focus on their time and make sure that they completely understand, the buying channels and the receiving and the approval process flows. But if there's no questions and nothing else in the chat, it doesn't look like we can conclude our session. I want to thank you all for joining, and please feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions or any concerns. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.